are welcome to sequence 9 of session 3. I am your life skills class 1 teacher. In this sequence, we will be looking at the differences between the ICT tools of communication. Relax and enjoy the sequence. Now, before we continue, I want you to answer the following questions. And the instruction requires you to answer true or false. Question 1. Modern ICT tools are used to communicate over short distances. Modern ICT tools are used to communicate over short distances. True or false? Question 2. A computer is an example of a traditional ICT tool. A computer is an example of a traditional ICT tool. True or false? Now, after critically thinking, let us now give the answers to activity 1. And the correct answer for question 1 is, I'll take the question again. Modern ICT tools are used to communicate over short distances. And the correct answer is false. Very good. 2. A computer is an example of a traditional ICT tool. And the correct answer is false. Beautiful. In this sequence, we shall be looking at the differences between the traditional and modern ICT tools. Therefore, dear learner, at the end of this sequence, you should be able to 1. Differentiate between traditional and modern ICT tools in communication. And 2. Explain at least 3 disadvantages of traditional ICT tools. And now to the lesson proper. Differences between traditional and modern ICT tools. The differences between the traditional and modern ICT tools include 1. With traditional ICT tools, communication is within short distances. Meanwhile, with modern ICT tools, communication is over long distances. And some of the examples of traditional ICT tools include a bell and a drum. Now, like I said earlier, that traditional ICT tools help you to communicate within very short distances. And that is why you can use a bell, a drum, a guitar, and even a band to communicate with someone who is not far away. Meanwhile, with modern ICT tools, you can communicate using a radio or a television. Now, look above and you will find images of different ICT tools. The first is a bell, the second is a drum, and a bell and a drum are traditional ICT tools. The next image we have is the image of a radio, and the last, the image of a television. So, a radio and a television are examples of modern ICT tools that help you to communicate over long distances. The second difference between traditional and modern ICT tools is that with the traditional ICT tools, the number of people involved is usually very small. The number of people involved is small. Meanwhile, with the use of the modern ICT tools, the number of people involved is large. The third difference between the traditional and modern ICT tools is that for the traditional ICT tools, communication is very slow, while with modern ICT tools, communication is very fast. The fourth difference is that using traditional ICT tools, you can communicate even in the absence of electricity. Meanwhile, with modern ICT tools, sometimes communication is disrupted because of lack of electricity. Thus, we see that even in the absence of electricity, communication continues with the use of traditional ICT tools. For example, you don't need electricity to play a bell. Neither do you need electricity to play a drum. However, regarding the modern ICT tools, without electricity, a television or a radio in most cases cannot work. The fifth difference between the traditional and modern ICT tools is that traditional ICT tools requires physical strength to use the tools. Traditional ICT tools requires physical strength to use the tools. For example, look above. There you will find an image of a boy playing a band. Now, it requires physical strength for him to play the band. On the contrary, with the use of the modern ICT tools, electricity is required to enable the tools to work. As such, no physical energy is required to have the modern ICT tools function effectively. And the last difference between the traditional and modern ICT tools is that for For the traditional ICT tools, communication is limited only to a particular place, whereas with the use of modern ICT tools, communication spreads everywhere. So, we see that traditional ICT tools are used to communicate within short distances. Meanwhile, modern ICT tools are used to communicate over long distances. So far, I want you now to engage in activity 2. And the instruction is for you to either say true or false. So, say true or false. Question 1. Traditional ICT tools need physical energy to use them. Traditional ICT tools need physical energy to use them. True or false? Question 2. Communication is slow using modern ICT tools. Communication is slow using modern ICT tools. True or false? Question 3. The number of persons involved in modern ICT communication is large. The number of persons involved in modern ICT communication is large. True or false? Now, after critically thinking, I want you to join me as we answer the questions. Remember, the instruction is for you to say true or false. And the correct answer for question 1 is, I'll take the question again. Traditional ICT tools need physical energy to use them. And the correct answer is true. 2. Communication is slow using modern ICT tools. And the correct answer is false. 3. The number of persons involved in modern ICT communication is large. And the correct answer is true. Excellent. I am proud of you. So therefore, to conclude, the traditional and modern ICT tools are used in communication. And there are a lot of differences between both. However, the similarity in both is their ability to send information and other messages from one person to another, one place to another, be it within short distances in the case of traditional ICT tools, or over long distances using modern ICT tools. Well done, dear learner. You have successfully completed this sequence. Get ready for the next sequence. Goodbye.